Hello everyone. Welcome to the second set of practice questions based on the lessons that we have had this week and some additional information as usual based on something we may not have covered or related to the topics that we have covered but which was not mentioned in the lessons to act as a supplement for your learning. The first question, which emperor gave the royal farman of 1717? This is a very important but a relatively easy question because this is something that you are expected to know. And we're talking about the royal farman of 1717 where the company was allowed to trade duty free, and of course we also know that this particular farman was misinterpreted, and even in the private trade that company officials used to carry out, they tried to evade duties. Your options are Shah Jahan, Farooq Siyar, Mir Jafar and Shah Alam II. The correct answer for this is B. So see, the second question now is which of the following statements is incorrect regarding the Indian economy during the colonial period. I have italicized incorrect for you so that your attention immediately goes to this. But in the actual exam paper, it may not be so. You need to read the question very carefully because very often you assume that they're asking you which of the following statements is correct and you end up marking accordingly. But it is imperative that you read the question carefully and mark accordingly. So, which of the following statements is incorrect, right? Let us see. India registered an import surplus during the colonial period. Second option, India registered an export surplus during the colonial period. C, India became a net exporter of raw materials, and D, Indian handicrafts declined during this period. First, let us look at C and D because A and B are similar. We'll need to analyze. C is correct. India did become a net exporter of raw materials. We know for a fact that this was happening, especially if you remember the laissez-faire period. Then India was losing out because whatever it was exporting was raw materials. It wasn't able to export its goods at an equal weightage as compared to British goods, and Indian handicrafts were declining because the patronage that the artisans, weavers, etc. had enjoyed was going for a toss, and there was a lot of deindustrialization, deurbanization and general penury and poverty prevalent in India. So C and D are correct. Now let us look at A and B. Now why is A or B, why are they confusing? Because normally when you would look at this colonial period in front of you, you would think that India was not doing very well as an economy and it was being exploited. So there is no way that there was more export than import. You would normally assume that import would have been more than the export, but it wasn't so. Okay, India was registering an export surplus. So the right answer here in this case is A. A is incorrect. How is this? Because of the raw materials that were being exported, so there was an export surplus. Even though there was a lot of drain of wealth from India, but it wasn't happening at this level at least. Right, so quantitatively speaking, our exports were more, even though they comprised primarily of raw materials and not finished goods. So be very, very careful. Sometimes statements that we think make sense or seem logical, you need to understand them from a quantitative and an economic point of view as well. The third question, which of the following changes was introduced by the Charter Act of 1813? I know that we have not covered the Charter Acts so far, but we will do that subsequently in one of the lessons coming up. But even so, because we spoke about the different stages of the Indian economy during the colonial period and the Charter Act did have something to do with those stages, we have put this question in. So let us see. It ended the monopoly of the East India Company over trade in India. B, it ended the monopoly of the East India Company over trade in India except trade in tea and trade with China. C, it provided for the establishment of Federal Court of India, and D is none of the above. The right answer here is B. During the laissez-faire period, which is the second phase that we spoke about, and in general, there was a lot of displeasure over the monopoly that the company had come to enjoy over a fertile market like India. Within Britain, we have spoken about this. People were not happy that there was this one company that was managing and reaping all the profits of such a colony, and they wanted a piece of the pie, so to speak. So, in any case, the Charter Act of 1813 sought to introduce some changes, and it, did seek to end the monopoly over trade in India, except for these two things. These remained as is under the company. The fourth one is match the following companies with the nation they were associated with. So, in this you can be asked, because there is this entire, in fact, subtopic called Advent of Europeans in India, and we know for a fact that the British were not the first or the only company that came here. They were not the only nation that sought to capitalize on the Sone ki Chiriya as we knew it. There were other nations as well. So we have three things before us. Let us see which one goes with which. The Verenigde Oost-Indisch Company was for Netherlands, and it's actually the Verenigde Oost-Indisch Company. That's how V is actually for when you pronounce it. So it goes with Netherlands. La Compagnie des Indes Orientales. I don't know how correct my pronunciation is, but just so that you have this in front of you, this was the French company, and East India Company was obviously Great Britain. The fifth one is, where was the first factory of the East India Company set up? Your options are Machilipatnam, Madurai, Bombay and Surat. This is quite simple. The right answer is Surat. The sixth question, which of the following statements is correct about India's first passenger railway? We have spoken about the development of railways in one of the previous lessons, so you can always go back to it to revise. Your options here were, it was operated by the Great Indian Peninsula Railway. Second was, it was hauled by three locomotives, that is Sahab, Sultan and Sindh. Then C, both A and B, and D, none of the above is correct. The right answer here is C. This is an interesting thing. This we had not covered in the lesson. The three locomotives, what were they called? Sahab, Sultan and Sindh. Okay. The seventh one is Alexander Reed is associated with, and your options were Ryotwari system, permanent settlement, Mahalwari system, none of the above. The right answer here is Ryotwari. A. Eighth, under the Ryotwari system, the affixed land revenue was revised every, and your options are a decade, that is 10 years, 5 years, 2 years. The right answer here is none of the above. We did discuss this. It was around, every 20 to 30 years. The ninth question, the British got the Diwani rights over Bengal, Bihar and Orissa after, which war, post which war, a particular treaty was signed, which rendered these Diwani rights to the British. Your options were Battle of Plassey, or remember we spoke about Palashi, the Battle of Buxar, Third Anglo-Mysore War, Second Anglo-Maratha War. The right answer here is the Battle of Buxar. These Diwani rights came to Bengal, Bihar and Orissa in 1765 through the Treaty of Allahabad. And the 10th question is, the Meiji Restoration resulted in, this is a bit of analysis required here, deindustrialization in Japan, decline of agriculture in Japan, both A and B, none of the above. Your right answer is D. Now why is it so? Because the Meiji Restoration, it did not result in deindustrialization. It was the opposite. Japan started looking at the benefits of industrialization and implementing them in its own economy to sort of get out of the rut that it was in before. And there was no decline of agriculture. We have again discussed this before, that whatever happened in the Meiji Restoration was a very balanced act. And which is why, in fact, Japan came to be seen as a formidable opponent and respected opponent by the world economies, the Western economies, because it was not changing its inherent character. So it was dependent on agriculture also to a great extent, but it was adopting the good parts or the best practices, including those of industrialization, to enhance its status in the world. So this is what happened. Right, so this was it. I hope this was useful for you, and keep practicing, keep learning. All the best. Thank you.